Hello there, you're with NDTV. I'm Maha Siddiqui. Our top story at this hour, author Salman Rushdie was attacked by a man at an event in New York. He received several stab injuries, after which he was airlifted. The attacker, meanwhile, was restrained immediately and was then in the custody of the New York police. Salman Rushdie's condition at the moment, no further details apart from what the New York governor, Kathy Hochul, had to say, saying he's alive and being given the treatment that he requires. Let's listen into what she said first.
Well, it is heartbreaking to learn that within the last hour, a prominent individual, Salman Rushdie, was attacked on a stage in Western New York. Just before he was about to give a speech, he is alive. He has been transported, airlifted to safety. But here's an individual who has spent decades speaking truth to power, someone who's been out there unafraid, despite the threats that have followed him his entire adult life, it seems. And it happened at a site that is a place that's very familiar to me, a very tranquil rural community known as Chautauqua Institution, where the most preeminent speakers and thought leaders and politicians and justices and everyone come together to have the free expression of thought. So this is a place ideally suited for him to be able to speak, and that's what he was attempting to do just in the last hour before he was attacked.
Several reactions already coming in, with the writers' fraternity being shocked at this attack on Salman Rushdie. Let's listen in. What do authors say who are controversial because of their writings? Do they feel the need sometimes to get some sort of official protection for themselves, or are they so free-spirited that they find it very restricting?
I was saying most writers leave it to the organizers of the festivals to be able to ensure that they're able to speak freely in whichever platform they've been invited to. I think it is the responsibility of the platforms to ensure not just the safety of its speakers, but of course the safety of every person who attends that particular festival or event. Yes, in the past we've had threat issues as well, but thankfully with the help of the state police, the local police, the central agencies, at least in India, we've been very effectively been able to ensure the safety of all our guests and our speakers, and it's the same across the world, whether it's been in Boulder or New York or Houston or Rome or London or Belfast or wherever. But growing, and there is this growing sentiment, as you can see, where nobody thinks twice about using violence, and this is not necessarily restricted to only artists or writers or speakers, but really across the length and breadth of every country. And that really is a worrying concern. There is frequent attacks in America, as we know. There has been so many. There's been over 300, I think, mass shootings, or listed as mass shootings in this year itself. There's been so many attacks on women in many parts of the world. There's wars that have broken out. So we are in a very difficult space. And while we're all democracies, or most places are democracies, or most places that we work in are democracies, it's still a very challenging environment, and it continues to be so.
Salman Rushdie has been out and about. He is to be seen in public spaces, on the streets, walking around. Dr. Tharoor was talking about it a short while back. The attacker could have attacked him at just about any place. If he chose a venue where there was a large audience, walked up on the stage and then stabbed him, does it appear to be that the attacker was then trying to make a statement?
Look, I mean, again, we're speculating, and so I have to include a lot of caveats. But on the face of it, based on the information that we have, look, it could just be that there's somebody who wanted to target Mr. Rushdie because of his views, and because this is an event, the event would be advertised and so on, right? Now, if he's just walking around New York, you'd have to know much more. You'd have to know where he lives, what's his neighborhood, what time he goes out. It's just that much harder. Whereas if you see a poster and it says, Salman Rushdie is going to be here, it gives any perpetrator, any attacker more time to plan. Mr. Tharoor and others who pointed this out are absolutely right that over the years, Mr. Rushdie has rebuilt a normal life. He has not been in hiding. He has given numerous lectures. He has been out and about. And that shadow of the death sentence that had hung over his head for many years seems to have passed. Unfortunately, now, of course, that's the first thing that's going to be on everyone's mind again.
All right, let's talk about the writers' fraternity now that are in shock at this attack on Salman Rushdie. Let's listen into some reactions.
I think that Salman Rushdie is safe, okay, but someone could attack him, so that really... I'm worried. I'm worried that what would happen to us who are not getting the Western highest security, and there are many people who are critical of Islam, many critical of Islam. They are from Muslim countries, they are from, they are from many different countries. And in the subcontinent also, there are many people who are ex-Muslims, who are critical of Islam. They are not getting security, and they are in danger. We are in danger. Even people who are protected and people who are not protected, we all are in danger.
I think it's an utter horror to see this happening to a writer. And what is worse is that, of course, Salman would have been assuming that after, it's been a good 30-odd years 33 years since the original fatwa, that at least there would be no particular complication anymore, that people have adjusted. He was actually wandering around quite normally without security and so on. So it must have come as a terrible shock. I mean, I think for everyone who values freedom of expression and also values the sort of safety and sanctity of individuals, this is a terrible piece of news. And I'm really appalled that there are still people who believe that the answer to words is knives. The answer to words is other words, frankly, and if people don't like what he has to say, they can write and attack him with words. That they're entitled to do. This is really terrible.
I have very little information. I've literally heard like 2 seconds ago. We're part of a group of writers, and we were in touch with his wife and Eliza, and I don't even know if she necessarily knows any more information right now. So it's really, really very, very sudden, very early, like to say anything actually.
Absolutely, and shocking that it can happen at a public event.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually just completely in a state of total shock, and I mean, I'm just so upset that even to hear this news.
Now, an AP photographer, Joshua Goodman, was at the venue where this attack took place on Salman Rushdie, and he sent this report across.
So I'm at the Chautauqua Institution. It's a place of study and reflection and religious inquisitiveness, and it's now a crime scene. Back here at the amphitheater, there were about 2,500 people waiting to hear Salman Rushdie speak. He had just walked onto the stage, was still being introduced less than a minute before the event began, after the event began, and a man rushed from this audience up onto the stage and started punching or stabbing. It wasn't quite clear, but there was clearly some sort of blood or red liquid going in many directions. A collective sigh of shock from the audience, many of whom are here to, contemplate the problems of the world, not to see them up close. And eventually the scene was, the amphitheater was evacuated. It's now a crime scene. The man was detained. We're not really sure the status of Salman Rushdie. There has been a fatwa, an order for him to be killed on his life for many, many decades now. We're waiting to hear from authorities what his status is and what prompted this brazen, senseless, and very scary attack.
As we begin the countdown to India's 75th Independence Day, various monuments have been beautifully lit up in the colours of the national flag. Akshay Dongre has more details.
Before we talk about the flag politics, let's just take a look at the Rashtrapati Bhavan and how beautiful it looks. On various occasions, Rashtrapati Bhavan is lit in different colors, and yes, we are completing 75 years of independence, so it is a special occasion for all of us. Flag politics has started with the Bharatiya Janata Party holding its own campaigns, the Aam Aadmi Party coming up with its own version of campaign, the Congress Party holding Padyatras, holding Tiranga rallies as well. So all of these political parties, while they are celebrating Tiranga, while they are celebrating tricolour, they are also taking jibes at each other. So that is where the politics has come, and a lot of people are questioning that politics as well. They are saying that when tricolour should be uniting everybody, every Indian, it shouldn't become a political tool for the political parties. For example, when we talk about Telangana government plans to distribute Tiranga to each and every household. The Bharatiya Janata Party, the central government, in fact, is planning to hoist at least 20 crore tirangas across the country. That is one of the goal that the government of India has. When we talk about Aam Aadmi Party, there are about 500 gigantic flags that have been installed in the national capital. Congress is holding its own Padyatras, its own rallies. There are different ministries holding different events. India Post is delivering tiranga for free. Monuments, heritage monuments, there if you go till 15th of August, there is no charge at all, no fees at all for entry. So these are certain good things happening, but then there is some politics happening as well, where the political parties, for example, Bharatiya Janata Party has taken jibe at the Congress is taking jibe at the BJP, terming the RSS and questioning that why the RSS top leaders haven't changed their display picture as asked by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So this kind of politics is happening, which is to least unfortunate as far as the 75 year of Indian independence are concerned. But it is happening nonetheless, and people are really hoping that the political parties should avoid that. A political row by the BJP chief of Uttarakhand ahead of the launch of PM's Har Ghar Tiranga campaign. Mahendra Bhatt first demanded pictures of those houses which don't have the tricolour. Then after an outcry, he attempted a clarification.
मैंने कहा जिस घर में तिरंगा नहीं होगा उस पर देश विश्वास नहीं कर सकता है.
The opposition has attacked BJP for doublespeak, pointing out how the RSS, its ideological parent group, did not hoist the tricolour for decades, and its social media posts still don't have it, unlike BJP leaders.
I may not like to remind that this is the same party which its parent organization RSS is still not displayed Tiranga in their profile picture. They have been told many a times.
Maybe after a few years, but better late than never. It has been done now.
Like every Independence Day, many people are getting the tricolour for their homes, offices, vehicles and so on. However, this year, there appears to be a competitive political campaign by various ruling and opposition parties. BJP is gearing up for its Har Ghar Tiranga campaign, aiming to hoist at least 20 crore flags in houses across the country from August 13 to August 15 to celebrate India's 75th Independence Day. In Delhi, the AAP government has installed 500 gigantic tricolours across the city to mark the 75th year of independence. And the Chief Minister has asked people from across the country to sing the national anthem, holding flags on Sunday evening. Telangana's TRS government has a fortnight of activities from 9th to 22nd August, including a door-to-door distribution of the flag, aiming to cover most of the 1.2 crore households. And in Karnataka, the opposition Congress is holding a freedom march on 15th August to pay tribute to our freedom fighters. Meanwhile, For the common citizens, any politics over the tricolour is avoidable.
Hoisting the tricolour is a matter of pride for all of us, and yes, there are a lot of different parties who are doing campaign around it, but I feel that the flag shouldn't be dragged into politics.
We are celebrating the 75th Independence Day and by hosting the national flag, and it is a matter of our pride. Any politics should be avoided.
For decades, on Independence Day, Indians have put a tricolour in their homes, offices, vehicles and so on without much political interference. And that is likely to continue on the 75th anniversary as well, regardless of the competitive tiranga politics being seen in the run-up to this momentous event. Bureau Report, NDTV.
Meanwhile, a picture of Amir Khan has emerged with a tricolour fluttering at his residence balcony. That picture emerging even as Amir Khan is battling a bad opening for his movie, but celebrating India's 75th Independence Day there. Let's move on now. A Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist who was allegedly tasked with killing Nupur Sharma has been arrested by the Uttar Pradesh police. Nupur Sharma was suspended as the spokesperson of the BJP after her comments about Prophet Muhammad that triggered a huge protest in the country and a series of official complaints by Gulf countries. Now, the terrorist was identified as Muhammad Nadeem, according to the UP Corps, a resident of Kunda Kala village of UP's Saharanpur.
UP ATS today arrested a terrorist. His name is Nadeem from Gango area of Saharanpur in West UP. And according to ATS, he was planning to kill Nupur Sharma and he has got instructions from Pakistan. He was linked to two terrorist outfits in Pakistan. One is Jaish-e-Mohammed and other organization is TTP. And he was in direct contact with them. He was in contact with them through dark web. In fact, when ATS is now, as of now when we are talking, ATS is questioning him, but according to the officials in initial probe, they have found that he had the whole material, whole module to build an IED. So he had that whole module and he was going through it. In fact, he was about to go to Pakistan also through Nepal. They have discovered that he was tracking the parents of Nupur Sharma as well. So this is the initial information we have got from ATS. They are questioning and ATS will come up with more information tomorrow. In fact, it is very important also, Sonia, 2 days back, UP ATS had arrested an IS recruitee in Azamgarh and who was planning to kill a senior leader of RSS. So this is the second terrorist they have arrested. As of now, Nadeem has been questioned, and tomorrow ATS is going to do a press conference, and in that press conference they'll brief more about, but there are voice notes where he got instructions from Pakistan to plan and kill Nupur Sharma as soon as possible.
Let's talk about inflation now. It is at a 4-month low, below 7%. The inflation was down on the grounds of lower oil prices now, but it still remains above the comfort level of the RBI, which is above 6%. The comfortable level for them is between 2 to 6%.
Inflation rate has cooled to a 5-month low, to a 4-month low in the month of July. Now, what's the new rate? Inflation rate has fallen down to 6.7% in July from 7.01% in June. In fact, the rate has fallen for the third straight month. It went down in June and May as well. Now, this rate is the lowest that we've seen since March 2022. But there are serious concerns still. Inflation still remains above RBI's 6% threshold for the 7th straight month. Secondly, inflation has been above 6% this year, primarily because of global supply disruptions due to the war. Before this, if we get you an example, last year in July, the inflation rate was 5%, close to that figure. So compared to that figure just a year ago before the war, inflation is still really high. Third, inflation for fuel and light is rising. It went up from 10.4% in June to 11 7.8% in July, though inflation for food and beverages has in fact gone down. Now, another concerning point is that rural inflation is above urban inflation for the second straight month, meaning that like many other factors, even in inflation, rural India is being impacted more with a higher rise in prices that they're witnessing. Rural inflation is at 6.8%, higher than urban inflation at 6.5%. Now, what could take inflation down even further are lowering crude oil prices. Crude oil prices are down by over 9% in just the last month, and that could help bring down inflation even further. Even globally, we're seeing inflation coming down in major economies such as the United States, but it's also rising in some countries.
Let's talk about the climate emergency now, as drought has been declared in parts of London. The droughts across Europe are also being reported. This is the first time in 500 years that this sort of a situation has arisen in Europe.
London is set to witness an even hotter weekend, as after discussions on the prolonged dry weather, an official drought in London has been declared, and temperatures are set to rise over 36 degrees Celsius. Parts of southern, central and eastern England have now officially moved into the drought status. As Europe faces its worst drought in 500 years, Italy is one of the worst affected, declaring a state of emergency for areas surrounding the River Po, which accounts for more than a third of the country's agricultural production. France, Spain and Portugal have also been severely affected.
Right, with that, we're taking a very quick break. But before that, the countdown to India's 75th Independence Day, monuments across the country illuminated in the tricolour.